Hello and welcome to Lantern Lane Stories. Tonight's story is The Day the Tomatoes Went Wild. The summer sun hung over Buñol like a warm blanket. The little Spanish town smelled of fresh bread from the bakery and ripe tomatoes. Red crates of fruit sat at the market stall, piled high and gleaming. It was the last Wednesday of August in 1945, and the whole town felt something special in the air. All morning, people had been decorating the town square. Flags hung between the windows in red and gold. The cobblestones were swept clean. Children ran back and forth, excited and laughing. A group of young people gathered together, talking and joking about the parade that was about to begin. The giants will be tall enough to touch the clouds today. One young person pointed at the enormous parade floats being rolled into place. These weren't real giants, but the painted heads were so big and so funny looking that they seemed alive. They were called the Big Heads, and children loved them more than anything. The air grew warm and sticky. The smell of the tomato stall grew stronger as people brushed past the wooden stand, picking out red tomatoes for their evening meals. The vendor wiped his hands on his apron and smiled at the growing crowd. By midday, the whole town had gathered in the square. Everyone wore their best clothes. The music started, drums and trumpets and cheerful songs that made people sway and tap their feet. The parade was about to begin. The first giants came rolling down the narrow street, and the crowd cheered. The enormous painted heads were beautiful, bright colors, wild hair, expressions so silly that the children giggled and covered their mouths. The band played louder, people clapped. The air felt electric with joy. Then something wonderful and terrible happened at once. One of the young people in the parade wanted so badly to be part of it. He reached out to touch one of the giants. He pushed, just a little push, but it was enough. The enormous big head tilted, wobbled, and then toppled right off its stand. It crashed to the ground with a thud that echoed across the whole square. The crowd gasped. The parade stopped. The young man's face turned red, then redder still. He felt his anger rise like heat from a fire. His hands clenched into fists. He wanted to shout, to hit something, to show the whole world how furious he was. And then he saw it, the vegetable stall. Just behind him sat the tomato vendor's wooden stand, piled high with plump, red tomatoes. The fruit sat gleaming in the hot sun, begging to be picked up. Without thinking, without planning, the angry young man reached out and grabbed a tomato. He threw it. The red sphere flew through the air and splattered across the stand with a wet, satisfying sound. The vendor gasped. But then something unexpected happened. The people around the young man, his friends, strangers, even older folks, they all giggled with surprise and joy. And then they did it too. One person grabbed a tomato, then another, then another. Soon the air was full of red missiles. Tomatoes sailed through the air like fireworks. They splattered against clothes, against the cobblestones, against each other. The juice ran down people's arms in warm, sticky rivers. Their faces were painted with red. The smell changed from bread and summer heat to something tangy and sharp. The smell of tomato juice crushed in the sun. It was messy and wild, and nobody could believe it was happening. The police came running. The town guards came running. They blew their whistles. Stop, stop. But nobody wanted to stop. The people of Buñol had found something they didn't know they'd been looking for. A way to be wild together, to celebrate together, to fill the square with color and laughter and mess. Finally, after what felt like forever, the guards broke it up. The crowd scattered, giggling, covered head to toe in tomato juice and seeds. Their clothes were ruined. Their hair was sticky. They looked like they'd been painted in red. But they couldn't stop smiling. The following summer, a strange thing happened. As the last Wednesday of August approached again, whispers began in Buñol. Do you remember last year, the tomatoes? A group of young people had an idea. What if they brought tomatoes on purpose? What if they came ready to play? What if they could have that magical, wild feeling again? but without waiting for an accident. So on the last Wednesday of August in 1946, they did something bold. They arrived at the town square carrying baskets full of tomatoes. Red, ripe, perfect tomatoes. Their friends saw them and understood immediately. Other young people brought their own baskets, some tomatoes they'd grown in their gardens, others they'd bought from the market. The guards came running again, ready to stop it. But there were too many people now. There were too many tomatoes. And besides, the guards could see how happy everyone was. There was no anger this time, only joy, only the desire to celebrate something they couldn't quite name. Year after year, more people came. The tomato stall grew bigger. The tradition grew stronger. People from other towns heard about it and came to Buñol to join in. Families brought their children. The August night air filled with the smell of crushed tomatoes and summer celebration. The government tried to stop it once. They said the festival had no serious purpose, but the people of Buñol would not let it go. They loved what they had created. They loved the memory of that first accidental moment turned into joy. Now, 80 years after a young person knocked over a big head in anger, something amazing happens every summer in Buñol. On the last Wednesday of August, people come from all over the world, thousands of them, 20,000, maybe more. They wear white clothes so the red will show bright against the white. They roll giant tomato trucks into the square. 125 tons of tomatoes, imagine a mountain of red fruit. When the signal comes, sometimes it's a whistle, sometimes a bell, the tomatoes fly. The streets become rivers of red, the air fills with juice and seeds. Strangers hug each other covered in tomato. Children shout with joy. Adults remember being children. Everyone for 1 hour is part of a game that started by accident and became the world's biggest, messiest, most joyful food fight. They call it La Tomatina. It means the tomato festival. And every year people ask each other, why do we throw tomatoes? And someone always answers, because once a long time ago, an angry young person threw one and everything changed. The truth is, sometimes accidents make the best celebrations. Sometimes the mess is the point. And sometimes all it takes is one moment, one big head falling, one tomato flying, one person laughing, to start something that lasts forever. And so Buñol also slowly fell asleep. Good night.